I'm going to set up a new game as Eleanor, but instead of France, which is generally been the easier play, I'm going to play her as England, which can get extremely hard and challenging depending on what happens. Um, so let's talk about Eleanor for a second. Eleanor, um, Eleanor's core ability is that great works in the cities, in Eleanor cities, they have put a negative loyalty for all foreign cities within 9 tiles. So really, kind of like Amani's ability, where she has a promotion that exerts negative loyalty on neighboring cities, like that, but on steroids. Because you, if you prioritize wonders and buildings that have great works, you could put some serious negatives on cities surrounding Eleanor, which makes Eleanor not an easy sieve to forward settle. Um, and you can always tend to expand peacefully through loyalty pressure alone. Doesn't mean that battle and fighting is off the table, but there is definitely a passive game that can work. Mm. The A city that leaves another civilization. So another, more importantly, right? Whenever cities revolt, when they revolt, they typically go into a free city or a city state, and then they would revolt to whoever has the highest loyalty. But when a city switches to Eleanor, it completely bypasses the free city stage and will flip straight into Eleanor, which means having a loyalty game is very, very important. Which means have tons of amenities, have basically grow really tall cities with high amenities, and you can really multiply that pressure by a lot. Have theater squares, pretty much. Theater squares and wonders. That becomes Eleanor's main play style. However, Eleanor as England takes over England's benefits, which make it challenging because England's benefits will take you in slightly different directions. The whole idea of all iron and coal mines will generate more resources. Military engineers are have more charges and they're easy to produce. Powering cities is important. Industrial zone buildings are can be built at a discount, and harbor buildings increase stockpiles. So there is a definitely a production slash militaristic bent to how England should play. And typically, England on the whole, regardless of whichever civilization, whichever leader you play with, gets stronger pretty much after the industrial era. But then, just looking at that list, right? You're building encampments for military engineers, you're building harbors for the stockpiles, and you're building industrial zones. But then we want to build theater squares too, which means we already have a list of 5 things or 5 districts, unique districts we want to be building to get everything that England and Eleanor provides in one city. Which means you want really tall cities, which means you are not going to have too many cities unless you have like a good level of amenities. I'm sure for amenities you would be plugging in a entertainment complex in some places, which again is the sixth district that you got to be thinking about. The diversity of districts in Illinois cities is going to be very important. But at the bare minimum, we are going to be building theaters. We are definitely building theater squares everywhere, harbors in coastal cities, encampments in our frontier cities, and I'm thinking industrial zones everywhere else. Um, and yeah, I think the a big challenge here is going to be which district do we build and when, and how our land looks like. The Royal Navy dockyard is the unique harbor that England can build. So it pretty much becomes a must if you have a coastal city. In fact, even if you have a non-coastal or off-coastal city, or even on a lake, it becomes a must-have building. Um, it's not as important as Eleanor. Like it is pretty much just exactly like a harbor, except for the movement penalty. Embarking and disembarking is okay. It's not like a game changer, but on foreign continents, you can basically get more loyalty and gold from the Royal Navy dockyard, which means any city that is not on the home continent of the capital city, the Royal Navy dockyard is a priority build. The Sea Dog is a unique privateer. It's okay. I mean, we'll probably end up building one at least for the era score. But do we would we use that as a massive like a naval unit like a that's going to dominate the skies? Very unlikely, or the seas rather. Yeah, that's not likely. Um, Besides that, yeah, this just reading this list and looking at the kind of districts that we will be challenged with should make this an interesting game. As usual, we will be picking deity, standard speed. As far as map type is concerned, a sea based map would work, but I'm just going to go with continents. But typically, when I'm looking at continents, I have a bias for wetlands, and I'm going to pick that. It's just a beautiful version of the standard continents map. It creates a lot of islands and small continents and small land masses, which make the entire game a lot of fun. Um, the map size would be standard, and as far as game modes are concerned, Eleanor has a strong bias for a cultural victory, um, and I don't intend to lose out on a cultural victory as a logic as a way to win this. And monopolies and corporations is a game mode that if you end up with the right monopolies, it gives your cultural victory a huge edge. So we are going to play with that game mode on. I'm going to skip heroes and legends. The RNG around that is just too crazy. Um, I'm going to keep barbarians clans off. Typically, I keep them off for like a domination oriented game. Um, but in the past few games, I've been playing with this off and I've been enjoying it because barbs, depending on where and how they spawn, can cause a lot of havoc. Plus, in the early game with this game mode on, you can buy units from the camp, which kind of makes the early game survival a little easier. Um, yeah, let's keep it off for now. I'm not going to play with secret societies simply because for a cultural victory push, if we start with void singers, it's just going to make the game very easy, especially as Eleanor, especially with considering we are prioritizing theater squares and with monopolies. Void singers is the default de facto way to go, and I'm going to stay away from that. I it When the game gets too easy, it's not fun. I want a very challenging first 100 turns. Then we should settle into some sort of a sim game and then hopefully propel to victory. Um, let's take a look at our advanced settings. So, since we are playing with no barbarian clans, I would want to max out how many city states there are on the map. Um, 18 is, I think 18 has been fun so far. Have kept 18 CS for a few last of few games with barbarian clan modes off. If I play with barbarian clan modes on, I would love to have this number down to like 5 or 6 because many of the clans do become city states. However, on a wetlands map, because there are so many nooks and crannies and like hidden spaces all over the map, The odds of city states spawning in like crazy places because of the camps evolving is very high. And even if we start off with like very few city states, by the end of the game there are like 25 plus city states on the board, which you can easily ally if you have been like exploring the map religiously. So I think playing it with off is, I think, would be slightly more challenging. Um, I will be playing. So I've played with abundant resources and legendary start. Um, I'm considering whether I want to play this way from this point on. When you have abundant resources, the amount of monopolies that get formed, um, yeah, there are just more resources to capture and hold to to kind of get a monopoly. At the same time, if there are abundant resources, you have more tiles that you want, um, that you will have to actually build districts on and work. So it kind of makes it a little bit challenging placing down things. So I'll leave that that way. Um, the flip between legendary and balanced, um, I think legendary is still better. Um, I'm not entirely. So balanced will simply mean that you are guaranteed a copy of horses and iron and strategics in your land. But everything else will be could be normal. Legendary simply means that you're almost guaranteed to have very good tiles to work until you're like pop four, pop five at least. Um, I think I'm going to stick with legendary. It's been fun playing with these settings. Um, as far as for the wetland map is already kind of wet and lush, but I'm just going to make sure it gets even more so. So rainfall wet, temperature standard is fine, and sea level I'm going to go with low sea level. This will ensure that there are these weird land masses, sometimes contiguous to the continents that spawn. It's going to be It should make moving with a navy harder. Canal cities and cities that bridge two different seas and lakes and stuff are become very important, and you need to plan your cities accordingly. So stick with low. Um, as far as who we want to play against, I don't have a specific like the last game as Genghis Khan. We wanted to play with civs who have a unique cavalry unit. I don't have any such desire to play against a specific um, specific kind of a civ for a civ type. Um, as Eleanor, although our bent will be towards culture, all victory types as usual are on the table. We will try to go in whichever direction the map and the sit and the game RNG takes us. So with that end, I don't have a preference for any specific game leader to be in the game. Um, yeah, so that's pretty much it. And let's see how the map looks from this point on.